You'll never be their real mother, Rachel, and pretending otherwise will only damage these children further. Victoria's voice cut through the afternoon silence in my kitchen like a blade through silk. Some women are natural mothers, and others simply aren't equipped for the responsibility of raising someone else's children. Those words from my sister-in-law still echo in my mind as I share this story of transformation, vindication, and the profound journey from rejection to recognition that would ultimately redefine not just my relationship with my stepchildren, but my understanding of what it truly means to be a mother. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the bay windows of our suburban Denver home as Victoria Matthews sat across from me at the kitchen island, her perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around a porcelain teacup that had been a wedding gift from my mother. The irony was not lost on me that she was drinking from a cup meant to celebrate my marriage to her brother, while systematically dismantling my confidence as a stepmother to his 2 children. My name is Rachel Martinez, and at 32 years old, I had spent the previous 18 months navigating the complex terrain of becoming a stepmother to 8-year-old Emma and 6-year-old Lucas, after marrying their father, David Matthews. The children had been living with us full-time since their biological mother, David's ex-wife Jennifer, had relocated to Seattle for a career opportunity and agreed that stability in their current school district would be beneficial for their development. Victoria had requested this afternoon meeting under the pretense of discussing holiday arrangements, but I quickly realized that her agenda was far more personal and devastating than coordinating family gatherings. As David's older sister and a child psychology professor at the University of Colorado, Victoria carried significant influence within the Matthews family, and her professional credentials lent authority to her assessments of parenting capabilities and child welfare. Rachel, I need to address some concerns that have been brought to my attention regarding your approach to parenting Emma and Lucas, Victoria began, her tone carrying the measured authority of someone accustomed to delivering difficult academic evaluations. As someone who has dedicated my career to understanding child development and family dynamics, I feel obligated to provide you with some perspective on the situation. The formality of her language immediately put me on edge, but I attempted to maintain composure as I poured myself tea from the matching porcelain set. "What kind of concerns?" I asked, genuinely confused about what might have prompted this unexpected confrontation. "The children seem to be adjusting well to our family dynamic, and their teachers have been positive about their academic progress and social development." Victoria's expression shifted to what I would later recognize as condescending sympathy, the kind of look reserved for students who had submitted work that was well-intentioned but fundamentally flawed. "That's exactly the problem, Rachel. You're focusing on superficial indicators, rather than understanding the deeper psychological needs of children who have experienced parental separation and family restructuring." She opened her leather portfolio and withdrew several sheets of handwritten notes, as if she had been conducting a formal study of my parenting approaches. Children in blended family situations require specialized understanding of attachment theory, trauma-informed care, and the delicate process of building trust with non-biological parental figures. These are not intuitive skills that can be developed through good intentions and trial-and-error approaches. The clinical language she employed felt like armor designed to make her assessment seem objective rather than personal, but the underlying message was becoming increasingly clear. In Victoria's professional judgment, I lacked the fundamental qualifications necessary to serve as an effective parental figure for Emma and Lucas. "I've been reading extensively about step-family dynamics," I replied, gesturing toward the stack of parenting books that had become my constant companions since David and I began discussing marriage. "I've taken online courses in child development, attended workshops on blended family integration, and even consulted with a family therapist to ensure I was approaching this transition thoughtfully." Victoria's smile was patronizing, the kind of expression reserved for well-meaning amateurs who believed that enthusiasm could substitute for expertise. "Academic study is certainly commendable, Rachel, but effective parenting requires innate emotional intelligence and intuitive understanding of child psychology that cannot be acquired through textbooks and workshops. Some individuals possess natural maternal instincts, while others are better suited to supporting roles within family structures. The implication hung in the air between us like smoke from a fire that was just beginning to consume everything I had worked to build over the previous 18 months. Victoria was not merely questioning my parenting methods, she was challenging my fundamental capacity to serve as a mother figure to David's children. "What specific behaviors or incidents have concerned you?" I asked, desperately searching for concrete examples that might allow me to address her criticisms through improved approaches or modified strategies. "Emma and Lucas seem comfortable with me, and we've established routines and boundaries that appear to be working effectively." Victoria consulted her notes, with the deliberate precision of a prosecutor presenting evidence in a criminal trial. "Emma confided in me last week that she feels confused about her role in the family structure and uncertain about how to navigate her relationship with you. She expressed concern that accepting you as a maternal figure might somehow betray her loyalty to her biological mother." The revelation struck me like a physical blow, not because Emma's confusion was unexpected, but because Victoria had positioned herself as the confidant who received these sensitive communications, rather than encouraging Emma to discuss her feelings with David or me directly. "Lucas has been exhibiting behavioral regression at school," Victoria continued, reading from her carefully prepared documentation. "His teacher reported that he has become more withdrawn during group activities, and has been asking repeatedly when his is coming back. These are classic indicators of attachment disruption caused by inappropriate pressure to form premature bonds with substitute parental figures." Each piece of evidence felt like another nail being hammered into the coffin of my step-parenting aspirations. Victoria's professional background and systematic approach to documenting problems made her assessment feel clinical and irrefutable, rather than subjective and personal. Children who have experienced parental separation require specialized care from individuals who understand the complex psychological processes involved in grief, adaptation, and identity formation, she explained, her voice taking on the lecture hall tone she undoubtedly used with her university students. Well-intentioned adults without proper training can inadvertently cause additional trauma by attempting to fill roles they are not equipped to handle. The kitchen that had been the heart of our family's daily routine suddenly felt like a courtroom where I was being tried and found guilty of charges I had not fully understood I could commit. The breakfast nook where Emma and I had spent countless mornings working on homework assignments, the kitchen island where Lucas and I had conducted elaborate cooking experiments, and the dining table where all four of us had shared family meals, now felt like evidence of my presumptuous overreach into territory that belonged to someone more qualified. "I appreciate your concern for Emma and Lucas," I said, my voice barely steady as I struggled to maintain composure in the face of this systematic dismantling of my confidence. "But I love these children, and I've been trying to provide them with stability and support during what I understand is a difficult transition period." Victoria's response was swift and definitive, delivered with the authority of someone who had spent years studying the exact situation we were discussing. "Love is not sufficient, Rachel. Effective parenting requires psychological sophistication, emotional regulation skills, and intuitive understanding of child development that extends far beyond affection and good intentions." She leaned forward across the kitchen island, her blue eyes cold and calculating in a way that reminded me uncomfortably of a predator evaluating prey. "You'll never be their real mother, Rachel, and pretending otherwise will only damage these children further. Some women are natural mothers, and others simply aren't equipped for the responsibility of raising someone else's children." The words landed with devastating precision, each syllable carefully chosen to demolish the identity I had been constructing through 18 months of dedicated effort and emotional investment. Victoria was not merely expressing concern about my parenting approaches. She was declaring me fundamentally unfit for the role I had been attempting to fulfill. "Emma and Lucas need someone who understands the specialized requirements of children from broken homes," she continued, her voice carrying the finality of a judge delivering a life sentence. "They need someone who can provide the sophisticated emotional support and psychological guidance that their situation demands. They need someone who possesses natural maternal instincts, rather than someone who is learning parenting skills from books and websites." The kitchen fell silent except for the steady tick of the antique clock that David's grandmother had given us as a wedding gift. Even that sound seemed to mock me now, marking the passage of time I had wasted pursuing a role that Victoria had determined was beyond my capabilities. "What are you suggesting?" I asked weakly. though I suspected I already understood the implications of her assessment. Victoria's expression softened slightly, as if she were delivering compassionate guidance, rather than delivering a devastating verdict about my fundamental inadequacy. I think it would be beneficial for everyone involved if you stepped back from primary parenting responsibilities and allowed David to handle the children's emotional and developmental needs. You could maintain a supportive role within the household, while acknowledging that Emma and Lucas require specialized care from someone with appropriate qualifications. The suggestion felt like being asked to participate in my own professional execution while maintaining gratitude for the opportunity to contribute to the process. Victoria was proposing that I remain in the house as a domestic support person, while abandoning any attempt to serve as a genuine parental figure to the children I had come to love as my own. David and I discussed this arrangement when we decided to get married, I replied, struggling to find solid ground in the conversation that seemed designed to undermine every foundation of our family structure. He wanted me to be a full partner in raising Emma and Lucas, not just a household helper who stays in the background. Victoria waved her hand dismissively, as if David's perspective on his own children's needs was less relevant than her professional assessment of the situation. David is a wonderful father, but he lacks the objectivity necessary to evaluate what's best for his children's long-term psychological development. His emotional attachment to you prevents him from recognizing the potential harm that your inexperience might cause. The implication that my husband was unable to make sound decisions about his own children's welfare because of his feelings for me felt like another layer of insult added to the growing pile of personal and professional inadequacies Victoria had identified. I want what's best for Emma and Lucas, I said, tears beginning to blur my vision as the full impact of Victoria's assessment settled into my consciousness. If you truly believe that I'm harming them, then I need to understand specifically what I should do differently. Victoria's smile returned, but it carried no warmth or encouragement. Instead, it conveyed the satisfied expression of someone who had successfully delivered a difficult but necessary message. The most loving thing you can do for these children is acknowledge your limitations and allow someone more qualified to guide their development. There's no shame in recognizing that some responsibilities require specialized training and natural abilities that not everyone possesses. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. As Victoria gathered her papers and prepared to leave, she delivered one final assessment that would haunt my thoughts for weeks to come. Rachel, you're a kind-hearted woman who genuinely cares about Emma and Lucas, but caring is not the same as being equipped to handle the complex psychological needs of children from disrupted family backgrounds. The sooner you accept this reality, the sooner everyone can move forward in ways that actually serve the children's best interests. After Victoria left, I remained seated at the kitchen island, surrounded by the remnants of our family's afternoon routine and the devastating wreckage of my confidence as a stepmother. The parenting books that had been my guides and companions now felt like monuments to my naivety, and the family photographs displayed throughout the kitchen seemed to mock my presumptuous inclusion in moments that belonged to people with natural qualifications I fundamentally lacked. The afternoon sunlight that had seemed warm and welcoming when Victoria arrived now felt harsh and judgmental, illuminating a kitchen that no longer felt like the heart of our family's daily life, but rather like evidence of my inappropriate assumption of responsibilities that exceeded my capabilities. As I prepared to face David's return from work and somehow explain the conversation that had fundamentally altered my understanding of my role within our family, I carried with me the crushing weight of Victoria's professional verdict. I was not equipped to be the mother that Emma and Lucas deserved, and continuing to pretend otherwise would only cause them additional harm. The devastation was complete, systematic, and delivered with the authority of someone whose credentials and family position made her assessment feel like an immutable truth, rather than a subjective opinion that could be challenged or overcome. The weeks following Victoria's devastating assessment transformed my daily existence from purposeful maternal engagement to careful observation of my own inadequacies. Every interaction with Emma and Lucas became an exercise in self-doubt, as I analyzed my responses through the lens of Victoria's professional verdict. The confidence I had built through 18 months of dedicated step-parenting evaporated like morning mist, replaced by the suffocating awareness that my every gesture might be causing psychological damage to the children I had come to love unconditionally. The morning routine that had once been a source of family bonding and shared purpose now felt like a series of potential mistakes waiting to be cataloged and evaluated. When Emma approached me with questions about her math homework, I found myself hesitating before responding, wondering whether my assistance might somehow interfere with her natural learning process or create unhealthy dependency patterns that a qualified maternal figure would instinctively avoid. The simple act of helping a child with schoolwork had been transformed into a complex psychological minefield, where every decision carried the weight of potential harm. Lucas's request for help tying his shoes became an internal crisis, as I debated whether providing assistance would foster healthy skill development or create learned helplessness that might impact his long-term independence and self-confidence. The natural parental instinct to help and support had been contaminated by Victoria's assessment, turning routine childhood interactions into opportunities for me to demonstrate my fundamental unfitness for the maternal role I had presumed to occupy. David's return from work that evening after Victoria's visit had been particularly difficult as I struggled to explain the conversation without revealing the full extent of my psychological devastation. His immediate response was to dismiss his sister's concerns as professional overcomplication of normal family adjustment processes, but his reassurances felt hollow against the weight of Victoria's systematic analysis and documented evidence of my negative impact on the children's development. Victoria has always been overly analytical about family dynamics, David said as we sat in our bedroom later that evening, his voice carrying the frustrated tone of someone who had navigated his sister's professional assessments throughout his adult life. She approaches every family situation like it's a case study for her research, rather than understanding that real families are messy and imperfect, and somehow manage to function despite not following textbook guidelines. His support was genuine and loving, but it lacked the professional authority that Victoria's assessment carried. David was speaking from the perspective of a devoted husband who wanted to reassure his wife, while Victoria had presented her evaluation as an objective professional diagnosis based on specialized knowledge and systematic observation. The contrast in credibility felt overwhelming and insurmountable. Sleep became increasingly elusive as my mind replayed every interaction with Emma and Lucas from the previous 18 months, searching for evidence that might either validate or contradict Victoria's conclusions about my impact on their psychological development. The bedtime stories I had read, the scraped knees I had bandaged, the homework struggles I had navigated, and the countless moments of daily care I had provided, all became suspect memories that might represent inappropriate overreach rather than natural maternal responses. The parenting books that had been my companions and guides throughout the stepfamily integration process now felt like monuments to my presumptuous assumption that academic study could substitute for natural maternal instincts. The highlighted passages about attachment theory, the bookmarked sections on blended family dynamics, and the carefully written notes about child development strategies all seemed to mock my naive belief that dedication and education could overcome fundamental personality limitations. My approach to household responsibilities began to shift as I attempted to implement Victoria's suggestion about stepping back from primary parenting duties while maintaining a supportive household role. The breakfast preparations that had been collaborative family activities became solitary tasks I completed before the children woke up, eliminating opportunities for inappropriate maternal bonding that might confuse their understanding of family structure and loyalty obligations. The school pickup routine that had been cherished one-on-one time with each child transformed into efficient transportation service, where I focused on logistical coordination rather than emotional connection. The conversations about their daily experiences, friendships, and academic challenges that had once been natural extensions of our relationship now felt like invasive psychological probing that exceeded my qualifications as a non-biological parental figure. Emma's artistic projects, which had been sources of pride and bonding as we worked together on creative expression and skill development, became activities I observed from a respectful distance while encouraging her to share her achievements with David instead. The refrigerator gallery of her drawings and school assignments that had represented our shared investment in her academic and creative growth now felt like evidence of my inappropriate assumption of maternal recognition and celebration privileges. Lucas's bedtime rituals, which had evolved into special bonding time involving storytelling, gentle conversation about his day, and the security of consistent routine were gradually transferred back to David's exclusive responsibility. The trust and comfort Lucas had developed in sharing his fears, excitement, and childhood wonderings with me now seemed like evidence of attachment confusion that Victoria had identified as psychologically harmful to his development. The children's responses to these changes were immediate and concerning, though I interpreted their reactions through the filter of Victoria's assessment, rather than recognizing them as evidence of genuine relationship disruption. Emma's increased clinginess and repeated questions about whether she had done something wrong felt like confirmation that my previous involvement had created unhealthy dependency patterns, rather than natural expressions of confusion about the sudden emotional distance I was creating. Lucas's bedtime difficulties and requests for his Mama Rachel to read stories became painful reminders of the inappropriate role I had assumed rather than heartbreaking evidence of a child's genuine love and need for consistent maternal care. His tears when David explained that he would be handling bedtime routines felt like necessary adjustments to appropriate family structure, rather than the devastating loss of security and comfort they actually represented. My relationship with David began to suffer as the psychological transformation affected my ability to engage authentically with his support and encouragement. His attempts to reassure me about my value as a stepmother met with increasing resistance as I retreated into acceptance of Victoria's professional assessment. The intimate conversations about our family's future that had once been sources of shared vision and mutual support became exercises in managing his disappointment while protecting him from the full extent of my inadequacy. Our evening discussions about the children's development, school progress, and emotional needs shifted from collaborative parental planning to David providing updates while I offered supportive listening, without the presumption of equal input or decision-making authority. The partnership we had built in raising Emma and Lucas was being systematically dismantled, as I accepted my role as a domestic support person rather than a genuine parental partner. The financial implications of my reduced parental involvement began to emerge as I questioned the value of continued investment in child development resources and family activities that Victoria had declared beyond my qualifications to manage effectively. The family therapy sessions I had scheduled to support our blended family integration were canceled as I concluded that my participation might actually impede the professional guidance that David and the children needed. The children's extracurricular activities, which had been shared responsibilities involving coordination, transportation, and enthusiastic support for their interests and achievements, became exclusively David's domain as I retreated from involvement that might create confusion about appropriate parental boundaries and authority structures. Emma's soccer games and Lucas's piano recitals transformed from family celebrations into events I attended as a supportive household member rather than as a proud parental figure. My interactions with other parents in the children's social and academic communities became increasingly awkward as I struggled to define my role and explain my relationship to Emma and Lucas without overstepping the boundaries Victoria had established. The casual conversations about parenting challenges, child development milestones, and family activities that had been natural parts of school pickup and community events now felt like presumptuous participation in discussions reserved for qualified parents. The mother-child bonding activities that had been integral to my relationship building with Emma, including shopping trips for clothes and school supplies, craft projects, and one-on-one conversations about growing up and friendship dynamics, were gradually eliminated as I recognized them as inappropriate assumptions of maternal privileges that belonged to Jennifer or to future qualified parental figures who might enter the children's lives. The father-son activities that I had sometimes joined or facilitated for Lucas, including outdoor adventures, building projects, and sports-related bonding experiences, became exclusive opportunities for David to fulfill his parental responsibilities without the complication of my unqualified participation and potential interference with healthy masculine development patterns. My physical presence in family photographs began to feel inappropriate as I questioned whether my inclusion in visual documentation of the children's childhood represented presumptuous assumption of maternal status that might create confusion in their future understanding of family history and relationships. The family portraits that had represented our successful blended family integration now seemed like evidence of my overreach into territory that belonged to their biological parents. The holiday traditions we had been establishing as a blended family, including special cooking projects, gift-giving rituals, and celebration planning that involved Emma and Lucas in age-appropriate ways, were reconsidered and modified to eliminate my central role in creating meaningful family memories and traditions. The Christmas morning photographs, birthday celebration planning, and seasonal activity coordination that had been shared family responsibilities became exclusively David's domain. The gradual transformation of our household dynamic from collaborative family partnership to hierarchical structure, with clearly defined roles and limitations, created an atmosphere of careful politeness that replaced the natural warmth and spontaneous affection that had characterized our previous family interactions. The laughter, playfulness, and easy intimacy that had developed over 18 months of shared daily life gave way to formal courtesy and emotional distance. Emma's academic progress, which had flourished under the collaborative support system David and I had created, began to show signs of stress as she navigated the sudden shift in household dynamics and the loss of consistent encouragement and assistance from the maternal figure she had learned to trust and rely upon. Her teachers noted increased anxiety during school activities and confusion about family structure that manifested in classroom discussions and creative writing assignments. Lucas's behavioral development, which had been progressing steadily with the security and consistency of dual parental support, exhibited regression patterns that I interpreted as evidence of the damage Victoria had identified, rather than recognizing them as natural responses to the sudden loss of maternal care and attention he had learned to expect and depend upon. The evening hours that had once been filled with family activities, collaborative homework assistance, and shared household responsibilities became periods of careful observation and minimal engagement, as I attempted to fulfill Victoria's vision of appropriate step-parent boundaries while supporting David's parental responsibilities without overstepping professional limitations I apparently possessed. As the weeks accumulated into a month of this modified family structure, I found myself settling into a mindset of resigned acceptance that would have been unimaginable during our previous period of successful family integration and mutual affection. The energy and optimism that had sustained 18 months of dedicated step-parenting had been replaced by a profound sense of limitation and inadequacy that affected every aspect of my relationship with the children I continued to love, but no longer felt qualified to nurture and guide. The psychological transformation that began with Victoria's professional assessment entered a more destructive phase during the second month following our kitchen confrontation. What had initially been careful reconsideration of my parenting approaches evolved into systematic questioning of every aspect of my character and capabilities, extending far beyond my role as a stepmother into fundamental doubts about my worthiness as a partner, friend, and contributing member of our community. The mirror in our master bathroom became a daily reminder of my perceived inadequacies as I examined my reflection each morning, searching for visible evidence of the maternal deficiencies Victoria had identified with such clinical precision. The face looking back at me seemed to confirm her assessment through subtle markers I had previously overlooked. The uncertainty in my eyes when discussing child-related decisions, the hesitation in my voice when offering guidance to Emma and Lucas, and the physical tension that had replaced the natural ease I once felt in their presence. My professional confidence as a graphic designer began to deteriorate as I applied Victoria's framework of natural versus learned abilities to my career achievements and creative capabilities. The successful marketing campaigns I had developed, the client relationships I had built, and the artistic recognition I had earned throughout my career now seemed like accidents of circumstance, rather than evidence of genuine talent and dedicated skill development. If Victoria was correct that some individuals possessed innate capabilities while others were fundamentally limited regardless of effort and study, what did that suggest about my professional accomplishments and future potential? The creative projects that had once energized my imagination and provided outlets for artistic expression became sources of anxiety and self-criticism as I questioned whether my design concepts represented authentic vision or merely competent execution of conventional approaches. The portfolio of work I had assembled over 8 years in the advertising industry felt like a collection of pleasant mediocrity, rather than evidence of distinctive creative ability or strategic thinking capability. Emma's school art show, which should have been a celebration of her developing artistic talents and creative confidence, became a painful reminder of my inappropriate assumption of maternal pride and recognition privileges. Standing among the other parents admiring their children's work, I felt like an imposter who had no legitimate claim to the parental emotions I experienced while viewing Emma's colorful paintings and thoughtful pottery pieces. The joy and pride that welled up within me seemed like theft of feelings that belonged to Jennifer, or to future qualified maternal figures who might enter Emma's life. The conversations with other parents during the art show reception highlighted my confused status within the school community as I struggled to explain my relationship to Emma without overstepping the boundaries Victoria had established. When asked about Emma's artistic development and creative interests, I found myself deflecting the questions to David, or providing minimal responses that avoided claiming inappropriate knowledge or involvement in her educational progress and personal growth. Lucas's soccer practice sessions, which had been opportunities for supportive encouragement and shared investment in his athletic development, became exercises in careful observation from appropriate distances, while avoiding any behavior that might suggest maternal authority or excessive emotional involvement. The cheers of encouragement I had previously offered from the sidelines now felt like presumptuous participation in parental roles that exceeded my qualifications and appropriate boundaries within the family structure. My relationship with David's extended family began to reflect the psychological transformation as I retreated from active participation in family gatherings and celebrations that might require me to assume inappropriate parental responsibilities or speak with authority about Emma and Lucas's development, interests, and needs. The comfortable inclusion I had previously enjoyed at birthday parties, holiday celebrations, and casual family dinners gave way to polite attendance with minimal engagement in discussions about the children's progress and future plans. Victoria's presence at these family events became particularly challenging as her knowing glances and subtle comments reinforced the professional assessment she had delivered, while highlighting my reduced role and diminished confidence in family discussions. Her interactions with Emma and Lucas carried the natural authority of an experienced child psychology professional, who understood their developmental needs in ways that my amateur efforts could never achieve. The bedtime routine disruption continued to create distress for both children, though I interpreted their reactions through the filter of Victoria's assessment, rather than recognizing them as evidence of genuine relationship bonds being unnecessarily severed. Emma's increased difficulty falling asleep, and her requests for bedtime stories from Mama Rachel, felt like confirmation of the unhealthy attachment patterns Victoria had identified, rather than natural expressions of a child's need for consistent maternal comfort and security. Lucas's regression in nighttime independence, including renewed fears of darkness and separation anxiety that had been previously resolved through our established bedtime rituals, seemed like evidence of the psychological damage Victoria had warned about, rather than predictable responses to the sudden loss of maternal care and attention he had learned to depend upon for emotional regulation and comfort. The household management responsibilities that had been naturally distributed between David and me, according to our individual strengths and availability, became sources of uncertainty as I questioned whether my involvement in meal planning, educational support, and daily care coordination represented inappropriate assumption of maternal authority or necessary contributions to family functioning. The efficient systems we had developed for managing school schedules, extracurricular activities, and household routines began to deteriorate as I withdrew from collaborative planning and decision-making processes. My cooking efforts, which had been expressions of love and care through providing nutritious meals that accommodated Emma's food preferences and Lucas's developing palate, became mechanical exercises in meal preparation that avoided any appearance of maternal nurturing or inappropriate emotional investment in the children's nutritional needs and eating habits. The collaborative cooking projects we had enjoyed, where Emma and Lucas learned kitchen skills while contributing to family meal preparation, were eliminated to prevent further confusion about my role and authority within the household structure. The financial planning discussions that David and I had previously approached as equal partners in securing Emma and Lucas's future educational opportunities and developmental resources became conversations where I deferred to his parental judgment, while offering minimal input about investments in their long-term welfare and growth. The college savings accounts, activity fees, and educational resource purchases that had been shared family priorities became exclusively David's responsibility as I recognized my lack of legitimate claim to parental financial planning authority. My interactions with Emma's teachers and Lucas's school administrators shifted from collaborative parental engagement to supportive but limited involvement that avoided any suggestion of equal parental status or authority in educational decision-making processes. The parent-teacher conferences that had been opportunities for comprehensive discussion about the children's academic progress and social development became meetings David attended alone, while I remained in the background as a supportive household member, without legitimate input on educational strategies and academic planning. The therapeutic resources I had researched to support our blended family integration, including family counseling services and step-parent support groups, were abandoned, as I concluded that my participation might actually impede the professional guidance David and the children needed from qualified mental health professionals. The appointment I had scheduled with a family therapist who specialized in blended family dynamics was canceled, as I recognized that my presence might contaminate the therapeutic environment with my unqualified perspectives and amateur psychological insights. The community relationships I had developed through Emma and Lucas's activities and school involvement began to feel inappropriate, as I questioned my legitimate status within networks of parents who possessed natural maternal qualifications and authority. The friendships with other mothers that had developed through shared experiences of supporting children's growth and development now seemed like presumptuous participation in social circles reserved for individuals with genuine parental credentials and responsibilities. Emma's friend relationships, which I had previously supported through playdates, birthday party planning, and coordination with other parents, became activities I facilitated from a distance, while avoiding any behavior that might suggest maternal authority or inappropriate involvement in her social development and friendship formation. The natural pride I felt in her growing confidence and social skills seemed like theft of maternal emotions that belonged to Jennifer, or to future qualified parental figures. Lucas's developing interests in science and nature exploration, which had been sources of shared learning and bonding as we conducted simple experiments and outdoor discovery activities, were redirected exclusively to David's guidance to prevent further confusion about appropriate boundaries and educational authority within our family structure. The curiosity and enthusiasm Lucas had shared with me about natural phenomena and scientific concepts now felt like evidence of my inappropriate assumption of educational mentoring responsibilities. The family vacation planning that had been collaborative exercises in creating meaningful shared experiences and lasting memories became exclusively David's responsibility, as I recognized my lack of legitimate authority in decisions about the children's travel experiences and recreational development. The destinations we had previously chosen together based on Emma and Lucas's interests and developmental needs now seemed like presumptuous participation in parental planning that exceeded my qualifications and appropriate role boundaries. My photography hobby, which had resulted in extensive documentation of the children's growth, achievements, and daily life experiences, felt increasingly inappropriate as I questioned my legitimate claim to preserving their childhood memories and family history. The albums of photographs capturing Emma's artistic development and Lucas's athletic progress now seemed like evidence of my overreach into parental preservation responsibilities that belonged to their biological parents. The holiday traditions we had been establishing as a blended family, including special recipes, gift-giving customs, and celebration rituals that incorporated Emma and Lucas's preferences and cultural backgrounds, were reconsidered and modified to eliminate my central role in creating meaningful family memories and seasonal experiences. The Christmas morning documentation, birthday celebration coordination, and holiday meal preparation that had been shared family responsibilities became exclusively David's domain. As the psychological spiral deepened, I began to view other step-parents and blended families through the lens of Victoria's assessment, searching for evidence that might either validate or contradict her conclusions about the fundamental limitations of non-biological parental relationships. The successful step-families I observed in our community seemed like rare exceptions that proved the general rule about the superiority of biological parental bonds and the inherent limitations of substitute parental figures. The social isolation that resulted from my psychological transformation compounded the effects of professional and parental inadequacy as I retreated from discussions about family life, child development, and future planning that might require me to acknowledge my diminished role and reduced authority within our household structure. The connections with colleagues, neighbors, and community members that had been sustained through shared experiences of parenting and family life became superficial interactions that avoided authentic engagement with the central relationships that defined my daily existence. Sleep became increasingly disrupted as my mind cataloged evidence of my inadequacy, while searching for validation that might restore some measure of confidence in my capabilities and worth as a contributing member of our family unit. The quiet hours of early morning became periods of rumination and self-criticism, rather than peaceful rest and emotional restoration that might provide energy for the challenging work of rebuilding my shattered self-concept and parental identity. The third month following Victoria's devastating assessment brought what I can only describe as a complete psychological reckoning, with the implications of accepting my perceived limitations as immutable truths about my character and capabilities. The systematic dismantling of my confidence had reached a point where I experienced a profound moment of clarity about how thoroughly I had internalized Victoria's professional verdict, and allowed it to reshape not only my role within our family, but my fundamental understanding of my worth as a human being capable of growth, love, and meaningful contribution. The realization struck with particular force during a quiet Saturday morning in early October as I sat alone in our kitchen, watching through the bay window as David played catch with Lucas in our backyard while Emma worked on an art project at the patio table. The scene represented everything I had once been part of, and everything I had systematically removed myself from based on Victoria's assessment of my fundamental inadequacy as a parental figure. The physical distance between myself and the family activities unfolding just beyond the glass seemed to symbolize the emotional and psychological barriers I had constructed to protect the children from my supposedly harmful influence. Emma's concentrated expression as she carefully applied watercolors to her paper reminded me of countless similar moments when we had worked together on creative projects, sharing techniques and celebrating her developing artistic vision. The pride I felt watching her skillful brush strokes and thoughtful color choices now seemed like stolen emotions that belonged to Jennifer, or to future qualified maternal figures who might enter her life with appropriate credentials and natural maternal instincts. The joy of witnessing a child's creative development had been redefined as inappropriate attachment and overreach beyond my legitimate role boundaries. Lucas's enthusiastic attempts to catch David's carefully thrown baseball brought back memories of summer evenings when the three of us had practiced together, with me offering encouragement and celebrating his improving coordination and growing confidence. The laughter and playful teasing that had characterized those sessions now seemed like evidence of my presumptuous assumption of parental bonding privileges that Victoria had identified as psychologically harmful to his development and family loyalty understanding. The kitchen itself had become a monument to my retreat from authentic family engagement. The breakfast nook where Emma and I had spent countless mornings working through homework challenges while building trust and communication patterns now served only functional purposes without the warmth of genuine maternal connection. The kitchen island where Lucas and I had conducted elaborate cooking experiments while discussing his day and sharing his excited discoveries about school and friendships had been reduced to a meal preparation surface that avoided any appearance of inappropriate nurturing or emotional investment. The refrigerator, once covered with Emma's artwork and Lucas's school achievements that I had displayed with maternal pride and encouragement, now held only David's selections and necessary family schedule information. The gallery of creative expression and academic progress that had represented our shared investment in celebrating the children's growth and development had been dismantled to prevent further confusion about my appropriate role and recognition privileges within the family structure. My reflection in the kitchen window revealed the physical manifestation of the psychological transformation I had undergone. The confident, engaged woman who had embraced the challenges and rewards of step-parenting 18 months earlier had been replaced by someone who appeared tentative, withdrawn, and apologetic for her very presence in spaces that should have felt like home. The natural ease and maternal warmth that had characterized my interactions with Emma and Lucas had been systematically suppressed in favor of careful politeness that maintained appropriate boundaries, while avoiding any behavior that might be interpreted as overstepping my qualifications. The financial records and household management systems that David and I had developed as equal partners in creating stability and security for our blended family now reflected my diminished role and reduced authority in decisions affecting the children's welfare and development. The college savings contributions, activity fee payments, and educational resource investments that had been shared family priorities became exclusively David's responsibility, as I accepted my lack of legitimate claim to parental financial planning authority. The children's medical appointments, which had been naturally distributed between us based on availability and the particular needs of each situation, became exclusively David's domain, as I recognized my inappropriate assumption of healthcare decision-making responsibilities that required genuine parental authority and natural maternal instincts. The pediatric visits where I had provided emotional support and advocacy for Emma and Lucas now seemed like presumptuous participation in medical care coordination that exceeded my qualifications and appropriate involvement boundaries. Emma's developing social relationships, which I had previously supported through playdate coordination, friendship guidance, and communication with other parents, became activities I observed from appropriate distances, while avoiding any behavior that might suggest maternal authority or excessive emotional investment in her peer interactions and social development. The natural concern I felt about her friendship dynamics and social confidence now seemed like inappropriate attachment and overreach into parental responsibilities that belonged to Jennifer, or to future qualified maternal figures. Lucas's academic progress, which had flourished under the collaborative support system David and I had created, through consistent homework assistance, educational enrichment activities, and communication with his teachers, began to show signs of disruption as he navigated the confusion of suddenly reduced maternal support and engagement. His questions about why Mama Rachel no longer helped with reading practice or celebrated his spelling test achievements created heartbreaking moments that I interpreted as evidence of the attachment confusion Victoria had warned about, rather than recognizing them as natural responses to the loss of consistent care and encouragement. The evening routines that had been sources of family bonding and shared responsibility became carefully orchestrated activities designed to minimize my inappropriate involvement while supporting David's exclusive parental authority. The bedtime stories, homework supervision, and daily conversation about school experiences and personal concerns that had been naturally distributed between us according to the children's needs and our individual availability were restructured to eliminate my presumptuous assumption of equal parental status and decision-making authority. My professional work as a graphic designer began to suffer, as the psychological transformation affected my ability to concentrate on creative projects and client relationships that required confidence and innovative thinking. The marketing campaigns I had developed with enthusiasm and strategic insight now seemed like competent but unremarkable execution of conventional approaches, rather than evidence of distinctive creative ability or valuable professional contribution. If Victoria was correct about the fundamental limitations of individuals who lacked natural abilities, what did that suggest about my career achievements and future potential for meaningful professional growth? The client presentations that had once been opportunities to showcase creative solutions and strategic thinking became sources of anxiety, as I questioned whether my design concepts represented authentic vision or merely adequate technical execution of standard industry practices. The positive feedback and project renewals that had sustained my professional confidence throughout 8 years in the advertising industry now seemed like polite recognition of acceptable work rather than validation of genuine talent and valuable creative contribution. The creative projects that had provided outlets for artistic expression and personal fulfillment outside of family responsibilities became reminders of my fundamental limitations and lack of distinctive capability. The portfolio of work I had assembled through dedicated effort and continuous skill development felt like a collection of pleasant mediocrity, rather than evidence of the innovative thinking and strategic insight that distinguished truly successful professionals from competent but unremarkable practitioners. My relationship with David continued to deteriorate as the psychological transformation affected my ability to engage authentically as an equal partner in marriage and family planning. His attempts to reassure me about my value as a stepmother and life partner met with increasing resistance as I retreated into acceptance of Victoria's professional assessment and the fundamental limitations she had identified in my character and capabilities. The intimate conversations about dreams, goals, and future plans that had been sources of shared vision and mutual support became exercises in managing his disappointment while protecting him from the full extent of my inadequacy and diminished potential. The physical intimacy that had been natural expression of our love and partnership became complicated by my growing sense of unworthiness and fundamental inadequacy as a life partner who could contribute meaningfully to his happiness and success. The confidence and playfulness that had characterized our romantic relationship were replaced by apologetic gratitude for his continued acceptance, despite my obvious limitations, and reduced value as a companion capable of genuine partnership and mutual support. The social relationships with other couples in our community began to reflect my diminished self-concept as I struggled to contribute meaningfully to conversations about family life, career advancement, and future planning that required confidence and vision about personal potential and achievable goals. The dinner parties and casual gatherings that had been opportunities for friendship and community connection became exercises in polite participation, while avoiding discussions that might reveal the extent of my limitations and reduced expectations for personal growth and contribution. The extended family relationships that had been sources of acceptance and belonging within David's family system became reminders of my outsider status and inappropriate assumption of family member privileges that belonged to individuals with genuine credentials and natural qualifications. Victoria's presence at family gatherings provided constant reinforcement of the professional assessment she had delivered, while highlighting my reduced role and diminished authority in discussions about the children's development and future plans. The holiday planning that approached with the changing season became another source of anxiety as I questioned my legitimate role in creating meaningful family traditions and celebrations that required genuine parental authority and natural maternal instincts. The Christmas preparation activities that had been collaborative family projects involving Emma and Lucas in age-appropriate planning and creative expression now seemed like presumptuous assumption of holiday coordination responsibilities that exceeded my qualifications and appropriate involvement boundaries. The gift selection process that had been opportunities to demonstrate understanding of the children's interests, developmental needs, and personal preferences became exercises in deferring to David's parental judgment, while avoiding any appearance of maternal authority or excessive emotional investment in their happiness and satisfaction. The joy I had previously experienced in finding perfect presents that reflected genuine knowledge of their personalities and desires now seemed like inappropriate attachment and overreach into gift-giving privileges that belonged to their biological parents. As I sat in that kitchen on that October morning, watching the family activities I had once been integral to but now observed from behind glass barriers of my own construction, I experienced a crushing realization about how completely Victoria's assessment had redefined my understanding of my place in the world. The woman who had once believed in her capacity for growth, love, and meaningful contribution to the lives of others had been replaced by someone who accepted fundamental limitations as immutable truths that determined the boundaries of possibility and achievement. The tragedy was not merely that I had been excluded from full participation in raising Emma and Lucas, but that I had become complicit in my own diminishment by accepting Victoria's professional verdict as objective truth, rather than recognizing it as one person's limited perspective on the complex dynamics of love, family, and human potential for growth and transformation. The crushing weight of this realization settled over me as I understood how thoroughly I had surrendered my own authority over my life and relationships in deference to someone else's assessment of my fundamental inadequacy and limited potential for meaningful contribution to the welfare and happiness of the people I loved most deeply. The 4th month following Victoria's professional assessment marked my complete psychological surrender to the limitations she had identified, transforming what had begun as painful reconsideration of my parenting approaches into systematic acceptance of fundamental inadequacy that extended into every aspect of my existence. The process was gradual but inexorable, like watching the slow erosion of a coastline where each wave removed another piece of solid ground until nothing remained but the acknowledgement that the foundation I had built my identity upon was inherently unstable and destined for collapse. The morning routine that had once been natural expression of maternal care and family coordination became mechanical execution of household maintenance tasks designed to support David's exclusive parental authority, while avoiding any behavior that might suggest inappropriate assumption of maternal responsibilities. The breakfast preparation that had been collaborative family activity involving Emma and Lucas in age-appropriate cooking skills and nutritional education was reduced to efficient meal service that eliminated opportunities for bonding or educational engagement that exceeded my qualifications as a domestic support person. Emma's school preparation, which had previously involved collaborative selection of clothing appropriate for weather and activities, discussion of daily schedules and expectations, and emotional preparation for academic and social challenges, became purely logistical coordination focused on transportation and supply management. The conversations about her friendships, academic concerns, and creative projects that had been natural extensions of our maternal relationship were eliminated to prevent further confusion about family structure and appropriate authority boundaries. Lucas's morning needs, which had included assistance with personal hygiene routines, encouragement for developing independent skills, and emotional support for separation anxiety or school-related concerns, were redirected exclusively to David's parental care to avoid my continued interference with healthy child development patterns. The gentle guidance and reassuring presence I had provided during his transition from dependent child to capable student now seemed like evidence of the attachment disruption Victoria had identified as psychologically harmful. The household management systems that David and I had developed as equal partners in creating stability and efficiency for our blended family underwent systematic restructuring to reflect my diminished role and appropriate limitations. The shared calendar coordination, financial planning discussions, and domestic responsibility distribution that had been collaborative exercises and mutual support became exclusively David's domain, as I accepted my lack of legitimate authority in decisions affecting family welfare and long-term planning. My professional responsibilities as a graphic designer began to reflect the psychological transformation as I applied Victoria's framework of natural versus learned capabilities to my career performance and creative output. The client relationships I had built through dedicated service and innovative problem-solving now seemed like professional courtesy extended to competent but unremarkable service providers, rather than recognition of distinctive talent and valuable strategic insight. The marketing campaigns that had generated measurable results and client satisfaction felt like accidental successes rather than evidence of creative ability and business acumen. The creative projects that had once energized my imagination and provided outlets for artistic expression became routine technical execution, focused on meeting basic requirements rather than pursuing innovative solutions or distinctive visual communication. The portfolio of work that had represented 8 years of professional development and artistic growth was reinterpreted as adequate technical competence rather than evidence of creative vision and strategic thinking capability. Emma's academic progress monitoring, which had been shared responsibility involving regular communication with teachers, homework supervision, and educational enrichment activities, became exclusively David's parental obligation as I recognized my inappropriate assumption of educational authority and scholastic guidance responsibilities. The pride I had felt in her improving reading skills, mathematical understanding, and creative writing development now seemed like theft of parental emotions that belonged to Jennifer or to future qualified maternal figures who might enter her educational journey. The parent-teacher conferences that had been opportunities for comprehensive discussion about Emma's social development, academic challenges, and individual learning needs became meetings David attended alone, while I remained in the background as a supportive household member without legitimate input on educational strategies and academic planning. The insights I might have offered about her learning preferences, social interactions, and creative interests were deemed inappropriate contributions from someone without genuine parental status and natural maternal understanding. Lucas's extracurricular activities, which had been sources of shared investment in his athletic development and social skill building, became exclusively David's responsibility for transportation, encouragement, and progress evaluation. The soccer practices where I had provided sideline support and celebration of his improving coordination and team participation now seemed like presumptuous involvement in parental roles that exceeded my qualifications and appropriate boundaries within the family structure. The coaching conversations with Lucas about sportsmanship, effort, and personal improvement that had been natural extensions of our relationship were eliminated to prevent further confusion about authority and guidance responsibilities that belonged to his father and qualified adult mentors, rather than to substitute parental figures without appropriate credentials or natural coaching instincts. My relationship with David's extended family continued to deteriorate as I fully embraced my reduced status and eliminated any behavior that might suggest equal family member privileges or inappropriate assumption of parental recognition within family gatherings and celebrations. The holiday planning discussions, gift coordination activities, and family tradition participation that had been natural expressions of inclusion and belonging were restructured to reflect my appropriate role as David's spouse, rather than as a genuine parental figure with legitimate input on children's experiences and family memories. Victoria's presence at family events became less threatening as I fully accepted her professional assessment and acknowledged the accuracy of her evaluation regarding my fundamental limitations and inappropriate assumptions about my capabilities. Her interactions with Emma and Lucas carried the natural authority of someone with genuine qualifications and understanding of child development, while my presence represented well-intentioned but ultimately harmful interference with their psychological welfare and healthy family attachment patterns. The financial planning conversations that had previously involved collaborative decision-making about college savings, educational resources, and long-term security for Emma and Lucas became exclusively David's responsibility, as I accepted my lack of legitimate claim to parental financial authority and investment planning privileges. The contributions I had made to their future educational opportunities now seemed like presumptuous assumption of financial obligations that belonged to their biological parents rather than to substitute figures without genuine parental status. The children's medical care coordination, which had been naturally distributed between David and me based on availability and specific needs of each situation, became his exclusive domain, as I recognized my inappropriate involvement in healthcare decisions and medical advocacy that required genuine parental authority and natural maternal instincts. The pediatric appointments where I had provided emotional support and communication assistance now seemed like overreach into medical care responsibilities that exceeded my qualifications and appropriate involvement boundaries. Emma's social development support, which had included playdate coordination, friendship guidance, and communication with other parents about social activities and peer relationships, was eliminated from my responsibilities, as I accepted that such involvement required natural maternal understanding and parental authority that I fundamentally lacked. The concern I felt about her friendship dynamics and social confidence was reframed as inappropriate attachment rather than genuine care for her emotional welfare and developmental needs. Lucas's bedtime routine, which had been sources of bonding and security through consistent care and emotional availability, remained exclusively David's responsibility, as I maintained appropriate distance from intimate parental activities that required natural nurturing instincts and legitimate authority for comfort and guidance provision. The requests Lucas continued to make for bedtime stories and goodnight rituals with Mama Rachel were interpreted as evidence of the attachment confusion Victoria had identified, rather than as expressions of genuine affection and trust that had developed through consistent care and emotional availability. The educational enrichment activities that had been collaborative family projects involving museum visits, library exploration, and cultural experiences designed to broaden Emma and Lucas's understanding and curiosity about the world became exclusively David's responsibility for planning and execution. The shared learning experiences that had been opportunities for intellectual growth and family bonding now seemed like presumptuous assumption of educational authority and cultural guidance responsibilities that belonged to qualified parental figures with natural teaching instincts. My creative contributions to the children's artistic development, which had included collaborative art projects, music exploration, and creative writing encouragement, were eliminated as I recognized such activities as inappropriate assumption of cultural education and artistic mentorship roles that required natural creative guidance abilities and legitimate authority for aesthetic development support. The joy I had experienced in nurturing their creative expression and celebrating their artistic achievements was reframed as overreach, rather than authentic maternal care and encouragement. The household traditions we had been establishing as a blended family, including special meal preparations, seasonal celebrations, and recreational activities that incorporated Emma and Lucas's preferences and interests, were systematically modified to eliminate my central role in family memory creation and tradition establishment. The cooking projects we had enjoyed together, the holiday preparations that had involved their creative input, and the weekend activities that had been sources of shared enjoyment became exclusively David's domain for planning and coordination. The photographic documentation of the children's growth, achievements, and daily experiences that had been natural expressions of maternal pride and family history preservation now seemed like inappropriate assumption of memory-keeping responsibilities that belonged to their biological parents rather than to substitute figures without legitimate claim to family documentation privileges. The albums of images capturing Emma's artistic development and Lucas's athletic progress were transferred to David's exclusive management, as I accepted my lack of appropriate authority for childhood memory preservation and family history creation. The gift selection processes for birthdays, holidays, and special achievements that had been opportunities to demonstrate understanding of the children's individual personalities, interests, and developmental needs became exercises in deferring to David's parental judgment while avoiding any appearance of maternal authority or excessive emotional investment in their happiness and satisfaction. The knowledge I had accumulated about their preferences, dreams, and individual characteristics now seemed like inappropriate, intimate understanding that exceeded my legitimate role boundaries and relationship authority. As the weeks accumulated into months of this systematically reduced involvement and carefully maintained appropriate boundaries, I found myself settling into a psychological space of complete acceptance that would have been unimaginable during our previous period of authentic family integration and mutual affection. The woman who had once believed in her capacity for growth, learning, and meaningful contribution to the lives of people she loved had been replaced by someone who found strange comfort in the clarity of acknowledged limitations and defined boundaries. The energy and optimism that had sustained 18 months of dedicated step-parenting had been replaced by a resigned efficiency focused on supporting David's exclusive parental authority while maintaining household stability without presumptuous assumption of maternal responsibilities or inappropriate emotional investment in outcomes beyond my legitimate influence and appropriate concern. The transformation was complete, systematic, and delivered with the thoroughness of someone who had finally accepted professional assessment as objective truth about fundamental character limitations that determine the boundaries of possibility and appropriate aspiration within family relationships and personal development. The crisis that would ultimately shatter my carefully constructed acceptance of limitations arrived on a Thursday evening in late November, when David received an urgent phone call informing him that his father, Harrison, had suffered a massive heart attack during a business meeting in Chicago and was being rushed to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. The medical emergency created an immediate family crisis that demanded rapid coordination and decision-making, circumstances that would bypass the hierarchical boundaries I had established and force me into a position of unavoidable responsibility for Emma and Lucas during the most vulnerable period of their young lives. David's response to the emergency call demonstrated the kind of focused urgency that accompanies genuine crisis situations. Within minutes of receiving the notification from his mother, he was coordinating travel arrangements to Chicago, while simultaneously managing the complex logistics of immediate departure and extended absence from our Denver home. The business commitments that required cancellation, the household responsibilities that needed coverage, and the children's care arrangements that demanded immediate attention created a whirlwind of activity that left no time for careful consideration of appropriate boundaries or professional assessments of parental qualifications. "Rachel, I need to leave for Chicago tonight," David said, his voice carrying the strain of someone processing devastating news while attempting to manage practical necessities. "The doctors aren't sure if Dad will survive the night, and Mom needs me there immediately. Can you handle Emma and Lucas until I know more about the situation and can make arrangements for longer-term care if necessary?" The request struck me with the force of recognition that crisis situations do not accommodate carefully maintained limitations or theoretical frameworks about appropriate roles and responsibilities. David was not asking whether I possessed natural maternal instincts or professional qualifications for childcare management. He was asking whether I could provide the immediate stability and emotional support that Emma and Lucas would require during a period of family upheaval and uncertain outcomes. The children's response to the emergency revealed the artificial nature of the boundaries I had constructed over the previous months. Emma's immediate concern about her grandfather's welfare and her instinctive turn toward me for reassurance and comfort demonstrated that the authentic relationship we had built through 18 months of shared daily life had not been eliminated by my systematic withdrawal from maternal engagement. Her tearful questions about whether Grandpa Harrison would be okay and her need for physical comfort and emotional security bypassed every theoretical framework about appropriate attachment and parental authority. Lucas's confusion about the sudden disruption to family routine and his natural seeking of comfort from the adult who had provided consistent care and emotional availability throughout his daily life revealed the futility of attempting to restructure genuine relationships based on professional assessments of theoretical appropriateness. His questions about why Daddy had to leave and when he would return required immediate attention and authentic reassurance, rather than referral to appropriate authority figures or deference to qualified parental judgment. The practical requirements of managing the children's immediate needs while supporting David's departure preparations, forced me into decision-making roles that I had systematically avoided for months. The school notification processes, meal planning responsibilities, bedtime routine management, and emotional support provision that would be required during an indefinite period of single-parent responsibility could not be deferred to appropriate authority figures or managed through careful maintenance of suitable boundaries. David's departure for Chicago that evening left me alone with Emma and Lucas for the first time since implementing Victoria's recommendations about stepping back from primary parenting responsibilities. The house that had been carefully structured to minimize my inappropriate maternal involvement suddenly required my complete engagement with every aspect of the children's care, education, and emotional welfare. The systems and routines that had been modified to reflect my diminished role and appropriate limitations were inadequate for managing the comprehensive responsibilities that single-parent situations demanded. Emma's bedtime routine, which had been exclusively David's responsibility for months to prevent further attachment confusion and inappropriate maternal bonding, became my immediate obligation as she struggled with anxiety about her grandfather's condition and her father's sudden absence. The comfort and security she sought through familiar rituals and emotional reassurance could not be provided through theoretical frameworks or professional boundaries. Her need for genuine care and maternal presence demanded authentic engagement rather than careful maintenance of appropriate limitations. The bedtime stories that had been eliminated from my responsibilities to prevent presumptuous assumption of maternal authority became essential tools for providing comfort and distraction during a period of family crisis and emotional upheaval. Emma's request for the fairy tale narratives we had previously shared required immediate decision-making about whether theoretical appropriateness or genuine care should guide my response to her emotional needs and security requirements. Lucas's difficulty processing the emergency situation and his need for explanation and reassurance about family stability and safety created circumstances that demanded immediate maternal response rather than deference to appropriate authority figures. His questions about medical procedures, hospital environments, and the possibility of permanent family disruption required age-appropriate communication and emotional support that could not be delayed pending consultation with qualified professionals or suitable parental figures. The school communication requirements that arose the following morning forced me into educational advocacy roles that I had systematically avoided for months. Emma's teacher needed notification about the family emergency and its potential impact on her academic performance and emotional state during the period of uncertainty. Lucas's kindergarten instructor required information about temporary care arrangements and contact procedures for the duration of David's absence. These professional communications demanded maternal authority and genuine concern, rather than careful maintenance of appropriate boundaries or deference to legitimate parental status. The practical management of the children's daily schedules, nutritional needs, and activity coordination required comprehensive parental decision-making that bypassed theoretical frameworks about natural maternal instincts and professional qualifications. The breakfast preparation that had been reduced to mechanical meal service became opportunities for providing emotional comfort and family stability through familiar routines and nurturing care. The school preparation activities that had been limited to logistical coordination expanded into comprehensive support for managing anxiety and maintaining normal developmental activities during crisis circumstances. Emma's emotional processing of her grandfather's condition and her concerns about family stability demanded authentic maternal guidance and support that could not be provided through appropriate boundaries or professional limitations. Her questions about death, medical treatment, and family relationships required immediate attention from the adult, who had provided consistent care and emotional availability throughout her developmental years, regardless of theoretical appropriateness or natural qualification assessments. The after-school period, which had been carefully structured to minimize my inappropriate maternal involvement, became intensive, one-on-one time for addressing the children's emotional needs and providing stability during family upheaval. Emma's homework supervision, which had been eliminated from my responsibilities to prevent presumptuous assumption of educational authority, became essential support for maintaining academic routine and normalcy during a period of disruption and uncertainty. Lucas's play activities and recreational needs, which had been redirected exclusively to David's guidance to prevent attachment confusion, required immediate attention and creative engagement to provide distraction and emotional outlet during his processing of family crisis and paternal absence. The building projects, outdoor exploration, and imaginative play that had been sources of bonding and development became tools for managing anxiety and maintaining childhood normalcy during adult emergency circumstances. The dinner preparation and family meal coordination that had been reduced to efficient service without maternal nurturing became opportunities for creating stability and comfort through familiar foods, and shared conversation about daily experiences and emotional processing. The collaborative cooking activities that had been eliminated to prevent inappropriate educational involvement were restored as necessary tools for providing distraction and skill building during crisis management. The evening routines that had been exclusively David's responsibility became comprehensive maternal care involving homework assistance, emotional support, recreational activities, and preparation for bedtime during a period when consistent adult attention and nurturing care were essential for maintaining psychological stability and developmental progress. The careful boundaries that had been constructed to prevent attachment confusion became irrelevant in the face of genuine child welfare needs and emergency circumstances. The phone updates from David throughout the first day revealed the serious nature of Harrison's condition and the probability that his absence would extend beyond the initial emergency period into weeks of recovery management and family support coordination. The prospect of long-term single-parent responsibility while David managed his father's medical crisis and supported his mother through the treatment process created circumstances that demanded sustained maternal engagement rather than temporary emergency coverage within appropriate limitation boundaries. The children's questions about the duration of their father's absence and the implications for family routine and stability required honest communication and reassurance that could only be provided through genuine maternal authority and authentic concern for their welfare and emotional security. The theoretical frameworks about natural maternal instincts and professional qualifications became irrelevant when confronted with immediate child welfare needs and genuine emotional support requirements. Emma's artistic expression during this period revealed her processing of family crisis through creative outlets that required maternal appreciation and encouragement, rather than deference to appropriate authority figures. The drawings she created depicting family relationships and her emotional responses to current circumstances demanded immediate recognition and support from the adult who had provided consistent care and understanding throughout her development, regardless of professional assessments about natural creative guidance abilities. Lucas's behavioral responses to paternal absence and family disruption required immediate maternal attention and intervention strategies based on intimate knowledge of his personality, comfort needs, and effective communication approaches rather than theoretical frameworks or professional consultation. The regression patterns and anxiety symptoms he exhibited demanded responsive care from someone who understood his individual characteristics and emotional requirements through sustained relationship and authentic concern. As the first week of crisis management progressed, I found myself naturally resuming the comprehensive maternal role that Victoria's assessment had declared inappropriate and potentially harmful to the children's psychological welfare. The authentic care and genuine concern that had been systematically suppressed for months emerged as essential tools for managing family crisis and providing stability during emergency circumstances that demanded immediate and sustained parental response, rather than careful maintenance of theoretical boundaries and professional limitations. The second week of managing Emma and Lucas alone while David remained in Chicago with his critically ill father marked a profound shift in my psychological relationship with the limitations Victoria had imposed. The sustained responsibility for comprehensive childcare during an extended family crisis created circumstances that demanded authentic maternal engagement rather than theoretical adherence to professional boundaries. The children's genuine needs for emotional support, educational guidance, and daily care coordination could not be addressed through careful maintenance of appropriate limitations or deference to absent authority figures. Emma's academic performance during this period revealed the artificial nature of the educational boundaries I had constructed over the previous months. Her mathematics homework, which had been exclusively David's responsibility to prevent my presumptuous assumption of scholastic guidance authority, became my immediate obligation when her confusion about fraction concepts created frustration and tears that demanded immediate maternal response. The patient explanation and step-by-step guidance she required could not be deferred pending consultation with appropriate educational authorities or qualified academic support personnel. The breakthrough moment occurred during our third evening together, when Emma struggled with a particularly challenging word problem that combined mathematical concepts with reading comprehension requirements. Her increasing frustration and self-doubt triggered protective instincts that bypassed every theoretical framework about appropriate involvement boundaries and natural teaching qualifications. The careful distance I had maintained to prevent attachment confusion dissolved as I recognized her genuine need for immediate support and encouragement from the adult who understood her learning style and individual academic strengths. "I'm stupid at math," Emma declared through tears of frustration, her small hands crumpling the homework worksheet as she pushed it away from her position at the kitchen table. "I'll never understand fractions, and Dad isn't here to help me figure it out." The despair in her voice created an immediate crisis that demanded authentic maternal response, rather than adherence to Victoria's professional assessment about my educational limitations and inappropriate teaching involvement. Emma's academic confidence and emotional security could not be preserved through theoretical frameworks or careful maintenance of suitable boundaries. Her immediate need for mathematical guidance and emotional reassurance required genuine engagement from the adult who had provided consistent educational support throughout her developmental years. My response emerged from 18 months of authentic relationship and intimate understanding of Emma's learning preferences, rather than from professional qualifications or natural teaching instincts. The patient explanation techniques, visual demonstration methods, and encouraging communication approaches I employed reflected accumulated knowledge about her individual characteristics and effective educational strategies, rather than theoretical frameworks or academic credentials. "You're not stupid at math, Emma," I said, moving my chair closer to hers and gently smoothing the crumpled worksheet. "Fractions are tricky concepts that take time to understand completely. Let's work through this problem together using the visual methods that have helped you with challenging concepts before." The mathematical explanation I provided combined practical demonstration techniques with emotional support and confidence-building encouragement that reflected genuine concern for her academic success and psychological welfare. The fraction concepts that had seemed insurmountable became manageable through patient guidance and individualized instruction that acknowledged her learning style and provided appropriate scaffolding for skill development. Emma's response to my educational intervention revealed the continuing strength of our authentic relationship despite months of systematic withdrawal from maternal engagement. Her immediate relaxation and renewed confidence in tackling challenging academic material demonstrated that genuine care and established trust could not be eliminated through theoretical adherence to professional boundaries or appropriate limitation maintenance. "You explain things in ways that make sense to me," Emma said as her understanding of fraction relationships became clear through our collaborative problem-solving process. "When you help me with homework, I don't feel scared about making mistakes or being wrong about answers." Her observation highlighted the difference between authentic educational support based on genuine relationship and understanding versus theoretical approaches that prioritized professional appropriateness over individual child welfare and academic confidence. The patient guidance and encouraging communication I provided reflected accumulated knowledge about her personality and learning needs rather than formal credentials or natural teaching qualifications. Lucas's behavioral challenges during this period similarly demanded authentic maternal intervention that bypassed theoretical frameworks about appropriate authority boundaries and natural child management instincts. His difficulty processing the family crisis and his father's extended absence manifested in sleep disruption, increased clinginess, and regression in independent skills that required immediate attention and individualized support strategies. The bedtime routine that had been exclusively David's responsibility to prevent attachment confusion became my comprehensive obligation when Lucas experienced nighttime anxiety and separation fears that could not be addressed through appropriate boundary maintenance or deference to qualified parental authority. His need for comfort, security, and emotional reassurance during a period of family upheaval demanded genuine maternal presence and authentic care, rather than theoretical adherence to professional limitations. The sleep difficulties Lucas experienced required patient implementation of comfort strategies and security-building activities, that reflected intimate knowledge of his individual characteristics and effective soothing techniques. The bedtime stories, gentle back-rubbing, and quiet conversation about daily experiences and emotional processing that provided relief from his anxiety emerged from established relationship patterns rather than from natural nurturing instincts or professional qualifications. "Will Daddy come back soon?" Lucas asked during one particularly difficult bedtime period, his small voice reflecting the confusion and insecurity that had characterized his emotional state since David's departure. What if something happens to him like what happened to Grandpa Harrison? His questions about family stability and safety required immediate maternal guidance and reassurance that could not be provided through theoretical frameworks or careful maintenance of appropriate boundaries. The age-appropriate explanation about medical treatment, family support systems, and the temporary nature of current circumstances demanded authentic communication based on genuine concern for his emotional welfare and psychological security. My response drew upon accumulated understanding of Lucas's personality, communication preferences, and effective comfort strategies rather than from professional qualifications or natural maternal instincts. The reassuring explanations, physical comfort, and security-building activities I provided reflected 18 months of authentic relationship and intimate knowledge of his individual needs and characteristics. "Daddy is taking care of Grandpa Harrison because that's what families do when someone gets sick," I explained, stroking his hair as he settled into his pillow. "The doctors are helping Grandpa get better, and Daddy will come home as soon as he can. Until then, I'm here to take care of you and Emma, and we'll talk to Daddy every day so you know he's safe." The comfort and security Lucas derived from this maternal guidance revealed the artificial nature of the attachment boundaries I had constructed over the previous months. His immediate relaxation and ability to settle into peaceful sleep demonstrated that genuine care and established trust provided more effective support than theoretical adherence to professional limitations or appropriate role maintenance. The school communication requirements that arose during this period forced me into educational advocacy roles that I had systematically avoided since Victoria's assessment. Emma's teacher expressed concern about her distraction and emotional preoccupation during classroom activities, requesting information about home circumstances and strategies for providing academic support during the family crisis period. Mrs. Patterson's email about Emma's changed behavior in school demanded immediate maternal response rather than deference to appropriate authority figures or educational professionals. The comprehensive information about family circumstances, emotional support strategies, and academic accommodation requests required genuine concern for Emma's educational welfare and authentic knowledge of her individual characteristics and needs. My detailed response to Mrs. Patterson reflected accumulated understanding of Emma's learning style, emotional processing patterns, and effective support strategies rather than theoretical frameworks or professional qualifications. The educational advocacy and support coordination I provided emerged from 18 months of authentic involvement in her academic development and genuine investment in her scholastic success and psychological welfare. The communication established clear expectations for ongoing collaboration between home and school support systems, while providing specific strategies for managing Emma's emotional needs and maintaining academic progress during the family crisis period. The comprehensive approach reflected genuine maternal concern and authentic understanding of her individual requirements rather than appropriate boundary maintenance or professional limitation adherence. Lucas's kindergarten teacher similarly requested information about temporary care arrangements and strategies for supporting his emotional needs during the period of paternal absence. Ms. Rodriguez's concerns about his increased clinginess and separation anxiety during school drop-off required immediate maternal intervention and collaborative problem-solving rather than theoretical adherence to appropriate involvement boundaries. The support strategies I developed with Ms. Rodriguez reflected intimate knowledge of Lucas's personality, comfort needs, and effective communication approaches, rather than professional qualifications or natural child development understanding. The collaborative approach to managing his school-related anxiety and maintaining developmental progress during family crisis circumstances emerged from established relationship patterns and genuine concern for his psychological welfare. The after-school period during this second week required comprehensive maternal engagement that bypassed every theoretical framework about appropriate limitation maintenance and natural parenting qualifications. Emma's emotional processing of her grandfather's condition and her concerns about family stability demanded authentic maternal guidance and support that could not be provided through careful boundary maintenance or professional consultation. The conversations about death, medical treatment, and family relationships that Emma initiated required immediate attention from the adult who had provided consistent emotional availability and understanding throughout her developmental years. The age-appropriate explanations, emotional validation, and security-building reassurance I provided reflected accumulated knowledge of her individual characteristics and communication preferences, rather than theoretical frameworks or natural maternal instincts. Emma's artistic expression during this period revealed her processing of family crisis through creative outlets that required maternal appreciation and encouragement rather than deference to appropriate authority figures or professional limitations. The drawings she created depicting family relationships and her emotional responses to current circumstances demanded immediate recognition and supportive feedback from someone who understood her individual creative development and expression patterns. My response to Emma's artwork reflected genuine investment in her creative growth and emotional processing, rather than theoretical adherence to appropriate involvement boundaries. The encouraging feedback, thoughtful questions about her artistic choices, and collaborative exploration of her creative expression emerged from 18 months of authentic relationship and intimate understanding of her personality and developmental needs. Lucas's recreational activities and play needs during this period similarly required authentic maternal engagement that reflected genuine concern for his emotional welfare and developmental progress. The building projects, outdoor exploration, and imaginative play that provided outlets for processing family crisis and managing paternal absence demanded comprehensive involvement rather than careful limitation maintenance or appropriate boundary adherence. The creative activities I facilitated for Lucas reflected accumulated understanding of his interests, developmental stage, and effective engagement strategies rather than professional qualifications or natural play guidance abilities. The collaborative exploration, encouraging participation, and supportive interaction patterns emerged from established relationship dynamics and genuine investment in his psychological welfare and developmental progress. As the second week progressed, I found myself naturally resuming comprehensive maternal responsibilities that Victoria's assessment had declared inappropriate and potentially harmful to the children's psychological welfare. The authentic care, genuine concern, and established relationship patterns that had been systematically suppressed for months emerged as essential tools for managing extended family crisis and providing stability during circumstances that demanded immediate and sustained parental response rather than theoretical boundary maintenance. The third week of single-parent responsibility brought a series of breakthrough moments that fundamentally challenged the professional assessment Victoria had delivered months earlier. The sustained experience of providing comprehensive maternal care during an extended family crisis created undeniable evidence that my authentic engagement with Emma and Lucas produced positive outcomes that contradicted every theoretical framework about my fundamental limitations and inappropriate involvement in their psychological welfare and developmental progress. The most significant breakthrough occurred during Emma's science fair project preparation, an academic endeavor that had been exclusively David's responsibility since Victoria's intervention to prevent my presumptuous assumption of educational authority and scholastic guidance roles. The complex requirements of hypothesis development, experimental design, and presentation preparation created circumstances that demanded immediate maternal support rather than deference to absent qualified authorities or appropriate professional limitations. Emma's chosen project investigating plant growth under different lighting conditions required sophisticated understanding of scientific methodology and experimental procedures that challenged her fourth-grade academic capabilities. The frustration and self-doubt she experienced while attempting to navigate the complex requirements independently created an immediate crisis that demanded authentic maternal intervention rather than theoretical adherence to educational boundary maintenance. "This is too hard for me to figure out alone," Emma confided during our evening homework session, her voice carrying the defeated tone that had become familiar during challenging academic situations. "Dad always helps me understand the complicated parts of science projects, but he's not here, and I don't know how to design experiments or write hypotheses." Her genuine distress and academic anxiety demanded immediate maternal response that bypassed every framework about natural teaching qualifications and appropriate educational involvement boundaries. The comprehensive support she required could not be deferred pending consultation with qualified educational professionals or appropriate authority figures who possess superior credentials and natural instructional abilities. My response emerged from accumulated understanding of Emma's learning preferences and individual academic strengths, rather than from professional qualifications or theoretical frameworks about educational guidance authority. The patient explanation of scientific methodology, collaborative development of experimental procedures, and encouraging support for hypothesis formation reflected 18 months of authentic involvement in her scholastic development and genuine investment in her academic success. The scientific concepts that had seemed insurmountable became manageable through individualized instruction that acknowledged Emma's learning style and provided appropriate scaffolding for skill development. The experimental design we developed together reflected her genuine curiosity about plant biology while meeting the academic requirements for scientific rigor and presentation quality that would ensure her success in the competitive science fair environment. "You make science make sense," Emma observed, as her understanding of experimental variables and hypothesis testing became clear through our collaborative problem-solving process. "When you explain scientific concepts, I feel confident about conducting experiments and presenting results to judges." Her recognition of my educational effectiveness challenged every assumption about natural teaching qualifications and professional credentials that Victoria's assessment had established as prerequisites for scholastic guidance authority. The academic confidence and genuine enthusiasm for scientific learning that Emma demonstrated contradicted theoretical frameworks about attachment confusion and inappropriate educational involvement. The week-long project development process revealed my capacity for comprehensive educational support that extended far beyond basic homework assistance into sophisticated academic guidance and intellectual mentorship. The research strategies I facilitated, the experimental procedures we designed together, and the presentation techniques I helped Emma develop reflected accumulated knowledge and genuine concern for her educational welfare, rather than professional limitations or inappropriate involvement boundaries. Lucas's emotional breakthrough during this same period provided equally compelling evidence that my authentic maternal engagement produced positive developmental outcomes, rather than the psychological harm Victoria had predicted. His processing of family crisis and paternal absence had created behavioral challenges that required sustained maternal attention and individualized support strategies rather than theoretical adherence to appropriate limitation boundaries. The significant moment occurred during bedtime routine when Lucas spontaneously shared his fears about family stability and his concerns about whether the current crisis situation would result in permanent changes to our household structure and relationships. His emotional vulnerability and genuine need for reassurance created circumstances that demanded authentic maternal response rather than deference to qualified parental authority or professional consultation. "Are you going to leave us like some stepmoms do?" Lucas asked with the directness that characterized his communication style, his small hand gripping mine as we sat together on his bed. "My friend Tommy's stepmom left when things got hard, and now he only sees his dad sometimes." His question reflected sophisticated understanding of family dynamics and genuine anxiety about relationship stability that required immediate maternal guidance and reassurance rather than theoretical frameworks about appropriate involvement limitations. The emotional security and family confidence he needed could not be provided through professional boundaries or careful maintenance of suitable attachment restrictions. My response drew upon accumulated understanding of Lucas's personality, communication preferences, and effective comfort strategies, rather than from theoretical qualifications or natural maternal instincts. The reassuring explanations, physical comfort, and security-building activities I provided reflected 18 months of authentic relationship and intimate knowledge of his individual emotional needs and developmental characteristics. "I'm not going anywhere, Lucas," I said, smoothing his hair as he settled against my shoulder. "Being part of your family means staying together through difficult times and supporting each other when things are challenging. That's what love means, and that's what families do." The immediate comfort and emotional security Lucas derived from this maternal guidance revealed the artificial nature of the attachment boundaries Victoria had insisted were necessary for his psychological welfare. His peaceful transition to sleep and renewed confidence in family stability demonstrated that genuine care and established trust provided more effective support than theoretical adherence to professional limitations or appropriate role maintenance. The school feedback I received during this period provided external validation that contradicted Victoria's professional assessment about my negative impact on the children's psychological development and academic progress. Both Emma's teacher and Lucas's kindergarten instructor reported significant improvement in their emotional regulation, academic engagement, and social interaction patterns during the period of my comprehensive maternal care. Mrs. Patterson's email about Emma's renewed academic confidence and classroom participation provided objective evidence that my educational support was producing positive developmental outcomes, rather than the attachment, confusion, and scholastic interference that Victoria had predicted. The detailed observations about Emma's improved focus, increased willingness to participate in challenging activities, and enhanced peer interaction patterns reflected genuine progress, rather than theoretical concerns about inappropriate involvement boundaries. Emma has shown remarkable resilience during this family crisis period, Mrs. Patterson wrote in her weekly progress report. Her ability to maintain academic focus while processing emotional challenges suggests she is receiving excellent support and guidance at home. The science fair project she has developed demonstrates sophisticated understanding of experimental methodology that reflects high-quality educational mentorship and encouragement. The professional recognition of my educational effectiveness challenged every assumption about natural teaching qualifications and appropriate scholastic involvement that Victoria's assessment had established as fundamental limitations. The academic progress and emotional stability that Emma demonstrated contradicted theoretical frameworks about my presumptuous assumption of educational authority and harmful interference with qualified parental guidance. Ms. Rodriguez's observations about Lucas's emotional development during this period provided similar validation that my maternal care was producing positive psychological outcomes rather than the developmental harm Victoria had warned about. The behavioral improvements, emotional regulation enhancement, and social confidence growth that Lucas exhibited reflected genuine progress in managing family crisis circumstances through authentic maternal support and guidance. Lucas has shown impressive emotional maturity in adapting to temporary family structure changes, Ms. Rodriguez noted in her assessment report. His ability to maintain kindergarten routine and social engagement while processing paternal absence suggests he is receiving consistent, nurturing care that provides security and stability during challenging circumstances. The professional recognition of my maternal effectiveness contradicted every theoretical framework about attachment disruption and inappropriate parental involvement that had formed the foundation of Victoria's assessment. The psychological stability and developmental progress that Lucas demonstrated provided objective evidence that authentic care and established relationship patterns produced better outcomes than careful boundary maintenance or professional limitation adherence. The household management responsibilities that had seemed overwhelming when viewed through the lens of accepted limitations became natural expressions of comprehensive family care when approached with authentic concern and genuine investment in the children's welfare. The meal planning, schedule coordination, and domestic maintenance that supported Emma and Lucas's stability and comfort reflected accumulated understanding of their individual needs and preferences rather than inappropriate assumption of household authority. The daily routines I established during this period reflected 18 months of authentic involvement in family life, rather than theoretical frameworks about natural domestic qualifications or appropriate household management boundaries. The breakfast preparations that provided nutritional support and morning comfort, the after-school activities that offered emotional outlet and recreational engagement, and the evening routines that ensured homework completion and peaceful bedtime transitions emerged from genuine concern for their comprehensive welfare. The creative activities I facilitated during this period revealed my capacity for providing enriching developmental experiences that supported both children's individual interests and growth needs. The art projects with Emma that encouraged creative expression and confidence building, the building activities with Lucas that developed fine motor skills and problem-solving abilities, and the collaborative cooking experiences that taught practical life skills while creating family bonding opportunities reflected authentic understanding of their developmental requirements. The communication I maintained with David during this period provided him with comprehensive updates about the children's emotional state, academic progress, and daily experiences that allowed him to remain connected to their lives despite the geographic distance and crisis circumstances. The detailed reports about Emma's science fair preparation, Lucas's bedtime routine adaptations, and both children's processing of family crisis situations reflected genuine investment in maintaining family connections and supporting paternal relationships. David's responses to these updates revealed his recognition that my maternal care was providing exactly the support and stability that Emma and Lucas required during this challenging period. His expressions of gratitude and relief about their emotional welfare and continued developmental progress contradicted Victoria's predictions about my harmful influence and inappropriate involvement in their psychological well-being. "Rachel, I cannot express how grateful I am for the care you're providing Emma and Lucas during this crisis," David said during one of our evening phone conversations. "They sound happy and secure despite everything that's happening, and that peace of mind allows me to focus on Dad's recovery without worrying about their welfare." His recognition of my maternal effectiveness began to crack the foundation of limitations that Victoria's professional assessment had established as immutable truths about my character and capabilities. The evidence of positive outcomes and genuine child welfare improvement contradicted theoretical frameworks about natural maternal instincts and professional qualifications that had seemed so authoritative and definitive months earlier. As the third week progressed, the accumulated evidence of successful maternal engagement and positive developmental outcomes created the first significant challenge to the limitation mindset that had dominated my self-perception for months. The authentic care, genuine concern, and established relationship patterns that had been systematically suppressed were proving more effective than theoretical boundaries or professional assessments in supporting Emma and Lucas's comprehensive welfare during challenging circumstances. The fourth week of managing comprehensive family responsibilities while David remained in Chicago marked a profound shift in my understanding of the preparation and expertise I had unknowingly accumulated through 18 months of dedicated step-parenting. The sustained period of crisis management revealed that the knowledge, skills, and intuitive understanding I had developed were not merely amateur efforts at parenting, but sophisticated capabilities that had been systematically dismissed by Victoria's professional assessment, despite their demonstrated effectiveness in supporting Emma and Lucas's welfare and development. The recognition began during Emma's preparation for a challenging oral presentation about her science fair project, an academic requirement that demanded public speaking skills and confident communication abilities she had not previously developed. The anxiety and self-doubt she experienced about presenting her experimental findings to judges and classmates created circumstances that required specialized support strategies rather than generic encouragement or theoretical frameworks about appropriate educational involvement. My response to Emma's presentation anxiety drew upon accumulated understanding of her personality, communication preferences, and effective confidence-building techniques that had been developed through countless interactions over the previous months. The individualized approach I employed reflected sophisticated knowledge of her learning style, emotional triggers, and motivational strategies that could not have been acquired through professional training or theoretical study of child development principles. The presentation coaching I provided addressed not only the technical aspects of scientific communication, but also the emotional and psychological preparation necessary for successful public speaking performance. The breathing techniques for anxiety management, the practice strategies for content memorization, and the confidence-building exercises for stage presence reflected comprehensive understanding of Emma's individual needs and characteristics, rather than generic educational approaches or professional methodologies. "You know exactly what I need to feel confident about presenting my project," Emma observed during one of our practice sessions, her voice reflecting genuine appreciation for the individualized support she was receiving. "When you help me prepare for presentations, I feel ready to share my work with other people instead of feeling scared about making mistakes or forgetting important information." Her recognition of my specialized effectiveness challenged the fundamental assumptions about natural teaching qualifications and professional credentials that Victoria's assessment had established as prerequisites for educational guidance authority. The presentation skills and academic confidence that Emma developed through our collaborative preparation process contradicted theoretical frameworks about my presumptuous assumption of scholastic mentorship roles and inappropriate involvement in her educational development. The week-long preparation process revealed the sophisticated nature of the educational support strategies I had developed through authentic engagement with Emma's learning needs and academic challenges. The research methods I had taught her, the organizational techniques we had practiced together, and the communication skills I had helped her develop reflected accumulated expertise that extended far beyond basic homework assistance into comprehensive academic mentorship and intellectual guidance. Lucas's emotional development during this period provided additional evidence of the specialized understanding I had acquired through sustained authentic relationship and genuine investment in his psychological welfare. His successful adaptation to extended paternal absence and family crisis circumstances reflected the effectiveness of support strategies that had been developed through intimate knowledge of his personality, comfort needs, and individual characteristics, rather than through theoretical frameworks or professional consultation. The breakthrough moment occurred when Lucas successfully managed his first full day at kindergarten without separation anxiety or emotional distress, a developmental milestone that had seemed unlikely given his previous difficulty with paternal absence and family structure changes. His confident participation in classroom activities and positive interaction with peers demonstrated emotional stability that contradicted Victoria's predictions about attachment disruption and psychological harm from my maternal involvement. Miss Rodriguez says I'm being very brave about missing Daddy, Lucas reported with obvious pride during our after-school conversation, his small chest puffed out with the satisfaction of successful emotional management. She told me that having someone who loves me at home makes it easier to be strong at school. His teacher's recognition of the emotional security I was providing challenged every theoretical framework about inappropriate attachment and harmful interference with qualified parental guidance that had formed the foundation of Victoria's professional assessment. The psychological stability and social confidence that Lucas demonstrated provided objective evidence that authentic maternal care was producing positive developmental outcomes rather than the confusion and regression that had been predicted. The specialized understanding I had developed of Lucas's emotional needs and effective support strategies reflected 18 months of dedicated observation, authentic engagement, and genuine concern for his psychological welfare. The comfort techniques that calmed his anxiety, the communication approaches that encouraged his emotional expression, and the security-building activities that strengthened his confidence emerged from accumulated expertise rather than natural maternal instincts or professional qualifications. The household management systems I had developed during this period revealed sophisticated organizational capabilities and comprehensive understanding of family dynamics that extended far beyond basic domestic maintenance into complex coordination of educational, recreational, and developmental activities. The scheduling systems that balanced individual needs with family requirements, the meal planning that accommodated dietary preferences while ensuring nutritional adequacy, and the activity coordination that supported both children's interests while maintaining household efficiency reflected accumulated expertise in family management and child welfare optimization. The communication strategies I employed with school personnel, healthcare providers, and community organizations demonstrated professional-level advocacy skills and comprehensive understanding of child welfare systems that had been developed through sustained engagement with Emma and Lucas's needs and circumstances. The educational conferences I conducted with teachers, the medical appointment coordination I managed with pediatric providers, and the extracurricular activity arrangements I facilitated with recreational organizations reflected sophisticated understanding of child development support systems. Mrs. Patterson's feedback about my educational advocacy and support coordination provided external validation of the professional-level expertise I had unknowingly developed through authentic investment in Emma's academic welfare and scholastic success. Her recognition of my comprehensive understanding of Emma's learning needs and effective communication about educational strategies contradicted assumptions about amateur involvement and inappropriate presumption of scholastic guidance authority. Your insights about Emma's learning style and academic needs have been invaluable in helping us provide appropriate classroom support, Mrs. Patterson wrote in her weekly progress report. The educational strategies you have implemented at home demonstrate sophisticated understanding of child development principles and effective instructional methodologies that significantly enhance her academic progress and classroom engagement. The professional recognition of my educational expertise challenged every assumption about natural teaching qualifications and appropriate scholastic involvement that Victoria's assessment had established as fundamental limitations. The academic progress and classroom success that Emma achieved through our collaborative support efforts provided objective evidence that authentic concern and accumulated understanding produce superior outcomes compared to theoretical adherence to professional boundaries. Ms. Rodriguez's observations about my understanding of Lucas's developmental needs and effective support strategies provided similar validation of the specialized expertise I had acquired through sustained authentic relationship and genuine investment in his psychological welfare. Her recognition of my comprehensive approach to emotional support and behavioral guidance contradicted theoretical frameworks about inappropriate attachment and harmful interference with qualified developmental guidance. Your understanding of Lucas's individual characteristics and effective comfort strategies has been essential in helping him maintain emotional stability during this challenging family period, Ms. Rodriguez noted in her assessment report. The support techniques you have implemented demonstrate sophisticated knowledge of child psychology and effective intervention strategies that significantly enhance his emotional regulation and social confidence. The professional recognition of my developmental expertise contradicted every theoretical framework about natural maternal instincts and professional qualifications that had formed the foundation of Victoria's assessment. The emotional stability and social success that Lucas achieved through my maternal care provided objective evidence that authentic understanding and accumulated knowledge produced better outcomes than careful boundary maintenance or professional limitation adherence. The creative activities I facilitated during this period revealed sophisticated understanding of child development principles and effective enrichment strategies that supported both children's individual interests and comprehensive growth needs. The art projects that encouraged creative expression while developing fine motor skills, the science experiments that satisfied curiosity while building analytical thinking capabilities, and the collaborative building activities that fostered problem-solving abilities while strengthening family relationships reflected accumulated expertise in developmental activity design and implementation. The reading programs I developed for both children demonstrated comprehensive understanding of literacy development principles and individualized instruction methodologies that supported their distinct learning styles and academic advancement needs. The storytelling techniques that engaged their imagination while building vocabulary skills, the comprehension exercises that strengthened analytical thinking while maintaining enjoyment of literature, and the writing activities that developed communication abilities while encouraging creative expression, reflected sophisticated educational expertise. Emma's literacy progress during this period provided measurable evidence of the effectiveness of my educational approaches and individualized instruction strategies. Her reading level advancement, vocabulary expansion, and comprehension skill development contradicted assumptions about amateur educational involvement and inappropriate presumption of scholastic guidance authority. The academic achievements she demonstrated reflected the quality of educational support and mentorship she was receiving through our collaborative learning activities. Lucas's developmental progress in multiple areas provided additional validation of the comprehensive support strategies I had implemented through authentic understanding of his individual needs and characteristics. His improvements in emotional regulation, social interaction skills, fine motor development, and cognitive advancement reflected the effectiveness of individualized developmental activities and targeted support interventions that had been designed specifically for his personality and growth requirements. The financial management and resource coordination I maintained during this period demonstrated sophisticated understanding of family budgeting principles and effective household administration that supported both children's comprehensive welfare while maintaining fiscal responsibility. The educational resource investments, healthcare expense management, and activity fee coordination reflected accumulated expertise in family financial planning and child welfare optimization. David's recognition of my comprehensive family management capabilities and effective crisis coordination skills provided validation that contradicted Victoria's assessment about my fundamental limitations and inappropriate assumption of household authority. His expressions of gratitude and relief about the stability and support I was providing Emma and Lucas during the extended family crisis reflected genuine appreciation for specialized expertise rather than polite acknowledgement of adequate temporary assistance. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.